Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here on the channel. I'm Ash, you'll know me as Brommer18. In this video today we're continuing our FIFA 22 Tactics series where I'll show you how to recreate real systems in FIFA 22. Thank you very much for joining me yet again. If you're a subscriber, welcome back, and if you're new to the channel, welcome along. Thank you very much for joining us for the journey. In this video today we are going to go through Jose Mourinho's Chelsea tactics from his first spell, looking at between 2004 to 2006. Obviously very hard to sort of nail down a Mourinho system because he's just so adaptable. What I've done though is I've really tried to round up the basic principles and then put them into a system. Not only do we have a balanced game plan, but I'll also show you a defensive and attacking game plan as well for different situations and opponents, etc., if and when you need to do that. So we've got a whole range of stuff to go through today. Really excited for this one. A couple of quick notices. First things first, if you haven't also done so already, check out my Patreon, because on there you'll get a whole range of great perks, including my FIFA 22 custom tactics package where I give a deep dive, breakdown, ratings, rankings of every tactic I cover. I also do exclusive tactics videos that we wouldn't cover on the channel of more niche teams. Already done Marco Silva's Fulham. We've got a lot more planned for that, thinking of likes of the US men's national team and a whole range more as well. So do go and check that out, as well as my player scouting board. Lots of great perks on there. Also, if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and ring the bell so you get notifications every time I upload. Right then, enough housekeeping. Let's get into this tactic. Really excited for this one. So what do we have? We have a 4-3-3. Very, very unique in terms of Mourinho systems, because since then he's really been more of a 4-2-3-1 man. You've seen two holding mids, but this time you get two more adventurous central midfielders and just the one pivot and defensive mid, of course, that Claude Makelele role. We've got a really good balanced system here, so let's get into it. First things first, a couple of position changes. So we've got, in terms of the formation, it's a 4-3-3 holding with the defensive midfielder, but we have made a couple of changes. One, we've moved the left back up to wing back. Now this is Ben Chilwell, but it would have been Ashley Cole in this case. We know how good of an attacking wing back he was. Always with Mourinho team, one of his basic principles is when one fullback goes, the other one stays, and they bed into a back three and form a back three. In this case, obviously in FIFA, you can't get the balance between the two. You can't get one going and one staying. So in this case, we have to choose one that goes forward all the time and the other one that stays back. So in this case, we've gone for the left back because that would have been, of course, Ashley Cole, whereas a right back, we choose to stay. But obviously, you can make that change. We also move one of the central midfielders up to Cam, trying to replicate that Frank Lampard role, because not only is he that out-and-out box-to-box midfielder, but also he does a lot more work in the advanced areas. Plus, you want to get him close to the target man. Often what they do is they try and go long to Drogba, and then he would look to knock it down to either one of the wingers or usually Lampard as that attacking midfielder. He'd get close to him in those situations. One thing that's important to note, whichever fullback you decide to send forward and change to wing back, make sure that the opposite side is the attacking midfielder. So for example, we've got the left back at wing back here, so that means with the right central midfielder we move him up, and we'll talk about that more in the instructions, but it's just so you've got that balance between the two. You don't have too committed on the one side and on the other side not enough going forward. So that's just something worth bearing in mind. Right then, on to the tactics. First things first, we're going to go through this entire balanced game plan before we come on to defensive and attacking. We've got pressure on heavy touch, not always dropping back, as people would suggest with a Mourinho tactic. What you have in this case is a team that still has an element of trying to assert themselves onto the opposition and impose themselves. Because naturally, as a sort of team who are winning titles, you know, you're going to come against a lot of opposition teams who will sit back and they will look to allow you to have the ball and really drop back, get 11 men behind the ball. So obviously you've still got to have an active-minded nature. So we have pressure on heavy touch. You can complement that with the team press on the D-pad, which is down and then left as well, if and when you need to. Defensive width is 10, very compact, very narrow. We know what Mourinho teams are like. They will not allow the opposition to play through them under any circumstances. You'll find a lot of sort of space out wide for the opposition. Try and force them to cross, try and show them around into crossing situations, and then look to take on the likes of your keeper and your tall centre backs as well. That's very, very important. As a Jose would say, it is a principle of play. to have that sort of compact, narrow shape. The depth is 50 and it's a nice balanced mid block, nice and flat. Again, you're not too passive because you're not dropping off too much in this case. There's still an element of, you know, again, trying to impose yourself on the opposition, as I said, but you are still in that mid block deep enough so that you're not giving the opposition much chance to play it over the line. You'll notice in the gameplay, and I'll show it after these tactics as well, that often Manchester United tried to play over the top and through to us, to the likes of Ronaldo, Cavani, and Rashford. And they weren't able to because the defensive line was dropped off quite well. And so we really marshalled that out. So that's worth noting as well. Offensively then, what do we have? Build-up play is long ball. We've already spoken about how they liked to go up to Drogba a lot, the target man. Not just that though, they'd also look to try and play in behind as much as possible, as quickly as possible to the wingers, the likes of Robin, Duff, etc. You've got these guys running in behind. And that's why we have not only long ball but forward runs as well. So you've got this real counter-attacking emphasis. Now I did kind of go between slow build up and long ball here, because what you can do with slow build up is you could still go long, but I didn't really want players showing for the ball too deep. What you want is you want players on long ball, they'll get up forward quicker, in particular the midfielders, and they'll look to support Drogba or the wingers who it's played up to. So that's what we're trying to do here. So this is the best emphasis you can get on the counter-attack, because also you've got forward runs, and it's going to mean runners penetrating the opposition and looking to get in behind if and when they can. A great way to hit teams on the break. The width is up to 70. You're going to get a nice wide system, not only because you're going to be looking to get crosses into the box to your target man, to Lampard as well as that box-to-box mid, but also because you're going to find a lot of space on the counter in the wide areas. So with the wingers getting wider, the midfielders as well, even the attacking fullback, you're going to have a lot more joy in those areas to try and exploit those wide positions. Hopefully with the opposition maybe playing a bit narrower, you might get a little bit of success out of. So that's also worth noting as well. The players in the box is on 7, and this is going to give you roughly 3 to 4. Important not to move this up to 4, because yes, you're going to have maybe the 3 wingers and the attacking mid as well, but you don't want them all in the box at once. Generally, a lot of the time you want a bit of protection as well. Also worth bearing in mind, one of the wingers might be the ones crossing it as well. So as a result, then when that happens, you're not looking for Essien to get into the box in that case, or that Essien role. I've got Kovacic here. You still want him acting as that pivot and that safety blanket on the edge and outskirts of the area. Finally, the corners and free kicks are up to 4 each. This will change depending on the game plan that we'll talk about shortly. But generally, you're going to have a lot more targets in the box. And that's one area that, you know, Mourinho teams will emphasise, those set pieces, making the most out of them. They are a great method and way to try and score goals, even though they are a bit harder on FIFA. So on to the player instructions then, starting with Mendy, which of course would have been, you know, really Petr Cech in this instance. We've got him on comms for crosses, very important. We spoke earlier about forcing the opposition into crossing situations, making them cross the ball in rather than cut inside, as they so often do, the AI in FIFA. And as a result, you're going to find a lot more emphasis on your keeper coming to claim those crosses, which he does in the gameplay very, very well. He often sees the initiative and claims a lot of balls, so very important as well. Saving outside the box, you know, we didn't see them play with that sort of sweeper keeper role, nor did they need to, because they would generally have a mid to low block. So that's also important as well, that you don't really need your keeper, you know, looking to run out too far. The 2 centre backs are on exactly the same. You don't need to change them at all, so that's perfectly fine. You want to make sure that they're sticking in with the rigidity of the tactic and the system, rather than really going and doing their own thing. The fullbacks. So we've spoken already about how one goes and one stays, and obviously we have to choose one or the other because we can't get the balance and the variation between them both switching it up. So as a result, we've got the right back staying back, and he's on stay back while attacking and inverted run type as well. Does a really good job of forming a back three, and goes a long way to protecting your goal overall. Whereas with the wing back, he's on join the attack and overlap as well. So obviously we've got that one really getting forward, looking to assert himself in those attacking situations. Next up, we've N'Golo Kante, of course, playing that Claude Makelele role. You know, tough to try and find someone in this Chelsea squad who could really match like for like for Claude Makelele. You know, Kante doesn't really do it because You know, the passing ability not quite as good as Makaleli, although not bad either from Kante, but just not on that Makaleli level. But it's very tough to leave out someone like N'Golo Kante, isn't it? So defensive behaviour is balanced. We've got someone who likes to man mark more, but because it doesn't necessarily work in FIFA in terms of tracking the opposition midfielders into the box, we always have it on balance when it's something that's more man marking orientated, because then what you find is they're a little bit more effective compared to man mark, where they don't really do either. Stay back while attacking, on attacking support as well. Make sure he's sort of screening the defence as well as, you know, manning his position. You don't want him committing too much. And finally, defensive position is cover centre. You don't need him dragging out to the left, because in this case, the central midfielder on the left side will cover for those positions. And you don't need him coming out onto right, because obviously you've got the right back staying back. So in this case, you know, he shouldn't need to come out. The only time you will need him to occasionally is when you manually do it, but in this case you want him to cover centre as well. Kovacic, who's playing the SEN role as that sort of central midfielder, not a box-to-box midfielder, someone who more shifted in between the lines, so the defensive to attacking lines go from sort of the edge of each box, so not quite a box-to-box man. And as a result, we've got this balanced attacking support, so that he's not constantly running in behind the strikers, but you'll find someone who is still going to support the attacking moves if and when they need to make sure that they're not replicating that box-to-box role. That's why in this case we've got to stay on the edge of the box for the cross. Finally, defensive position, as I've just mentioned, he's going to be on cover wing as well, and positioning freedom is stick to position. With Mason Mount playing that Lampard role, now he is that true out-and-out box-to-box central midfielder. But as I already spoke about, it's important that he is at attacking midfield, because we want to get him close to, in this case, Lukaku or Didier Drogba, so that when you're going long to the target man, he's there to pick up those knockdowns and support him in those shorter heading situations. So he's on comeback on defence to make sure he's tracking back and getting to the box for crosses as well. Positioning freedom is on stick to position, again, to make sure that he's sticking to the, you know, sort of tactical element of that role, as opposed to sort of going off and doing his own thing. That's definitely not what you're looking for in this system. Next up, with the wingers then, we have Pulisic and Werner in this case. Both of them are on comeback on defence, and that's very, very important. As we know, with a Mourinho system, everyone has to contribute to the defence in some form, other than maybe the striker, which we'll get onto very shortly. The support runs are both on getting behind. As we spoke about earlier, we want them penetrating the opposition defence with their movement and their pace. And that's how you're going to get an effective counter-attacking system. And we also want them both on getting to the box for crosses as well. Now, with the chance creation, these are unbalanced. And this is also very important, because what it's going to mean is you're going to be able to get them in a range of different situations. Sometimes they're going to be out near the touchline in a more crossing-orientated situation. But other times, you're going to want them angling their runs and really acting as a second threat towards the opposition goal. It's also important to know, as I kind of alluded to earlier, that naturally they're going to come inside sometimes and help support the striker and the target man to pick up those flick-ons and those loose balls. So that's why, in this instance, we have them both on balance. Finally, with Romelu Lukaku playing that Didier Drogba role, we've got him on stay central to make sure he's not drifting out either side. We want him as that focal point, that out-and-out target man. And that is why, naturally, of course, self-explanatory, we have him on target man. Again, he's going to look to back into the opponent, show for the ball, but by utilising his strength and then getting people to play off him. And this is the absolute best role to have in order to replicate that when he needs to. Finally, defensive support, he's the one who is going to be staying forward, because when you do regain the ball and you're in your own half, you can play it long to him quickly, and either he can flick it on or hold the ball up and wait for runners in and around him as well. So then, let's talk about the two different game plans. Starting off with defensive, how does this system, easy for me to say, change when they go a bit more defensive? Let's say either they're in a real big game, sometimes they do this in the likes of a semi-final or final, even league games against the big guns like Manchester United, or when they're, in the latter stages of a game, they're winning and they just want to see it out. Well, first things first, tactically, you'll notice this time they're on drop back, so they're not going to have a press. And then with the depth, this is going to become a very low block 20, which is a big subtraction from the original 50 mid block that we had it. So as a result, you're really seeing now them dropping off, flooding the defensive third and the defensive half of the pitch, and just trying to limit the opposition in every way they can. I did switch to this in the last around about 20 minutes of the gameplay at the top, and again, it does what it says on the tin. Really, you become more solid. It was even harder for Manchester United to try and play in behind me, but at the cost of added emphasis on attack. So do just bear that in mind as well. This is out and out defense when you need it. The width is lowered to 60 rather than 70 this time, because you don't want players getting too wide. You want to make sure that you're still thinking about, if and when you lose the ball, making sure that they can get back into their narrow, compact shape. So that's also very important. Players in the box will come down this time to 5, so you've only got roughly 2 to 3 in the box. Drogba, a winger, maybe either the other winger, or sometimes still Lampard as well, but it's important that you've only got 2 or 3 players getting into the box. And then corners and free kicks are lowered to 3 this time. We don't go all the way down, because we still do want some emphasis, as I spoke about, with a Mourinho system on those set pieces, because they are a very, very important goal threat. How about with the positions and player instructions? Well, as you can see, we've now moved the fullback back. So he's not wing back anymore, he's a base fullback. And also we've moved the attacking midfielder back to central midfield. This is again just for their starting positions. Make sure they're a bit deeper. Again, a bit more emphasis on that defensive phase of the game. They're still on join the attack and overlap is the left back, but just doing it from a deeper position. And Lampard this time, or Mount in this case, he's still on getting to the box, but this time rather than attacking support, get forward, he's just unbalanced. So he's picking and choosing those moments if and when he needs to. Also with Sen or Kovacic in this case, rather than being on balanced attack, this time he's on stay back while attacking. So he's constantly providing that positional pivot. And finally, the striker is this time on comeback on defense. Just again, as we say, it is out and out defense. You are going to lose emphasis in that attacking phase of the game. So just bear that one in mind as well. As for the attacking game plan, let's have a look at the changes in this case. We have press after possession loss this time. Again, a bit more of an extreme counter-pressing system as they try and win the ball back urgently. Not an extreme constant pressure though. Make sure it is just a press after possession loss. Again, you can supplement that with down and left on the D-pad if and when you need to. The depth this time is boosted up to 68. Now the reason why it's 68 is because they still didn't go for a high line. It would still be more of a mid block, but I've tried to push this all the way as close to a high line as I can possibly get. The defensive width is also increased to 20 from 10 as well. Again, giving you a little bit more leeway in terms of a press, so you can get out to the opposition a little bit quicker when they get the ball out wide. Fullbacks, wingbacks, wingers, etc. But again, nothing too drastic as we've seen with a Mourinho system. The players in the box is moved up to 8 from 7, so this time you're definitely going to have 4 players getting into the box. And set pieces, I've left this up 4. You can change this to 5 in the game if you're desperate. Again, this is based more on if you've decided to go for an attacking system right from the off. But if you're, in the last 10-15 minutes, you're pushing for a goal desperately, then in that case you can move these up to 5. But I have kept these on 4. As for the player instructions, just one change. Kovacic, or the Sen role, we have him on get forward and get into the box for the crosses this time. Obviously, has been complemented by the fact that you've now increased the amount of players that are getting into the box from corners and crossing situations as well. So that's the only change that you're going to want to make to the personnel. Right then, that just about rounds it off for this video then, guys. If you've enjoyed it, please drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel as well. Any questions about the tactic, let me know in the comment section. Always happy to help and give you any information and feedback if you need it, so don't hesitate to get at me in the comment section. As I spoke about at the start of the video, check out my Patreon. Lots of great stuff going on there. You can see a breakdown on this tactic, a deep dive, pros and cons, ratings and rankings as well. Also get access to exclusive tactics videos and my player scouting board coming out soon, where it's going to have detailed scout reports on a whole range of players from across the world in real life. Really excited to get that one out, on top of a whole host of other perks. box. Don't forget to check out all the links in the description, such as my Twitter. Give me a follow on there and access all of my Amazon affiliate links where you can get access to all of my gear and equipment. It's a great way to support me because it does give the channel a little kickback when you do buy something, but you don't have to pay any more money. So I really would appreciate that. Great way to support the channel. On that note, we're going to round it off there. Thank you so much for watching, and until the next video, I will see you then.
Substitution for Manchester United. Coming off the pitch, number 20, Diogo Dalot. To be replaced by 29, Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Substitution for Manchester United. Coming off the pitch, number 10, Marcus Rashford. Coming onto the pitch, number 21, Edinson Cavani.